Okay, so yesterday we left off on our overall trade plan and looking at a lower time frame based trade plan right here. This is actually where we left off. And actually, before we continue, here's that same video, the one where I'm literally begging you guys, begging you to use this system, truly understand it, don't really follow anything else, don't pay for anything if you don't want to, and just use this system and this understanding to build up your net worth or to build up your first funded account to start getting funded. And I did that for 2 days in a row now. And today I want to continue in the event that the price action actually continues, because as you know, what we do as traders is we simply follow the same context over and over and over again until the context either fails or the moves that we're looking for no longer deliver, right? Because that's literally what makes a trader. You find things that are moving well, you follow those things that are moving well, and then you keep following them if they continue moving well and you make money from them. Here's gold. It hasn't really changed. The overall screener and for the free people, the sentiment viewer has remained to be the same. So this is where we left off, and I told you guys we'd be moving to break even, and we would consider partialing on this in the event that we saw some more strength come in, so we could partial into the validation and then keep going from there. So all we're gonna do is we're gonna pick back up from where we were, and we're just gonna keep following the rules until we can no longer follow the rules anymore. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make this around 30% because I don't like seeing it or being in my way. I just like to see it very faintly. Okay, so this is where we left off. And at the moment, as you guys remember, we didn't look to take any partials yet. And this was from yesterday. This was the day before. And all these videos were uploaded, working you through it and showing you exactly how my team personally traded it as well. So we look for a little bit of strength, and that's all we do first. And right now we don't really get anything, so we wait until it comes back or until it starts pumping higher. Now, because I do have that 3 candle rule, we kind of have this 1, 2, and maybe if a little bit more strength comes in, we can partial. But what I'll do is I'll actually partial because of the fact that we've been in this trade for a while, and oftentimes my rule is met in the first few candles. So happily partial this at 3.34, which puts us at around 3.34. At 1.67, so plus 1.67, and the rest, very simply, now gets trailed with a rising 10. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna turn this on and put it on for minutes up to the 6 minute, just like this, and I'm gonna turn this one and make the visibility on this one a 1 minute. Up to like 3, so we can just see it on the 1 minute. Okay, perfect. So we should see the SMAs now. Great. And again, now we will trail, now that the strength has finally come in, with the rising 10. We'll see if we can do that and see what happens. So you can see if we waited a little bit, we would have gotten a better trade, but that's okay. Waiting for a down candle to close this thing out. And yeah, just waiting for it to close below this thing right now. And there we go. Looks like we got to close. Okay, we get to close right there about 3.68. So we get 3.68 over 2, putting us at plus 1.84. and subsiding that trade. And then we go back to square one, where we basically take a look at the context, the validation, and then the entry to find if we can take another trade. So at the moment, we know the context is very, very likely to be clear. As per this area we spoke about yesterday, it's coming out of some larger stage 1 and starting a stage 2. And if we look at the hourly, we're gonna see exactly that represented, right? We had this longer term stage 1, and now you're in clear stage 2. You're actually moving in a very, very heavily delivering stage 2. So we'll just keep that in mind as we keep going. But theoretically, if the 6 minute starts making a nice push higher, we should start to see setups. Now, if we take a look at this, you've already had a setup here, kind of a low-key setup here. So really, this wants to pull back deeper and then maybe make a setup around here, or wants to pretty much fail down and then set up a new move again, just like we saw here, just like we saw back here, every single day, because the market doesn't do anything new. All it does is it repeats clear moves on clear markets. And the problem with a lot of traders is waiting for the clear moves, and most importantly, knowing when there's a clear market. A lot of people will trade anything. I am teaching you not to do that. So we wait again. We wait for a clear move to come in. We wait for a clear surfer. So this is starting to do what we want to see, right? So you can see it starts to kind of surf higher, starts to put in a little bit of a tight range. So this is really good, because now if we can start to validate higher, that should produce an opportunity for an entry. But as this is happening, as you might see, right, we've had clean moves prior, very clean moves. When it moves higher and then goes sideways and moves higher and goes sideways and moves higher, it tends to do so very impulsively. Most recently, when it's moved sideways and moved higher, moved sideways and moved higher, it started to chop around more. It has become more choppy. And as a result, the expected stage 1s and 2s are likely to also deliver more choppily, right? This may not make a move like this. It may just go up a little bit. So that's something to keep in mind, because that instantly removes the high likelihood of a better trade happening. And if we look at the timer now, about 8 p.m. So honestly, it could set up into London or whatever since we are trading a lower time frame. So it's not terrible, and we can check out a lower time frame, but it's something to remember about what's happening now, right? Because that's a contextual clue about the market. So if we take a look at the 1 minute chart, again, what I'm doing is I'm looking for structural narratives of what's happening. At the moment, I see nothing worth buying. So I'll give this a chance to continue to get clear, right? Because on that higher time frame, it's still probably very clear. It starts to move up very heavily. It just comes right up. If it pauses and comes down a little bit, there should be an opportunity. But right now, again, it's moving in tandem with what we expected, with overall loose action. So if I go to a 6 minute, yeah, so I mean, in this case, it does take off, but it doesn't give me the kind of opportunity I personally want to look for, and that's okay. I will miss trades. So all I have to do is sit back and wait for the next potential opportunity. There's nothing really for me to do. So price just kind of takes off, goes a little bit sideways here. Again, these are harder areas to trade, but there is impulsiveness behind this, which is good because money is coming in, which means that if we do get now a sideways bit of action, we should see that impulsiveness continue forward. So that's what I would wait for, right? So I'd wait. It looks like it just goes, nothing really to do, comes down. And right now, all we're waiting for is some clear surf with a tightness across the top on our validation time frame, because that's going to set a precedent for a new move. Otherwise, there's not much to do right now. So it starts going sideways, comes down a little bit. So right now, the hourly is likely going to be, as you know, going sideways about a stage 1. What we'll do is we'll find the, is this the SMA one? I believe it is, right? Yeah. We'll actually increase this to the hourly as well. There we go. Yeah, so if we're taking a look at this, you can see we are still in a very clear stage 2. We're undergoing stage 1, so if price starts to reach higher, it definitely can go into stage 2. So there's not much to worry about in that respect, right? The context time frame is clearly there to continue making a potential move. But what matters now is that on our validation, or in this case, our 6 minute, and here's the EVC rule in terms of multiplication, very, very simple. We want to see that setup, and right now, I see absolutely nothing. I just see a choppy base market, so I wait, right? Because there's nothing else to do. If money wants to come in, it will come in. Otherwise, I will just stay out of this action, right? And then we have money come in very, very clearly. That's good. That's a first step. But this does not mean I can trade, right? Because there's a specific thing that I want to look for. So I have to wait and I have to allow price to make a setup. So now it's starting to do a little something, right? So right now you can see it's surfing higher along kind of the rising 20, the rising 10, but it hasn't really put in a tight range. Hopefully over the next few candles, it'll move sideways, which is again, the big part of patience. And then we can get a trade. The problem that people experience here is that they start seeing this and they go, oh my God, I gotta go, I gotta trade. And again, even if this works, it's not about the fact that it might work. Some people will see this and go, okay, I gotta buy it now. Okay, this is rushing the process, at least in my book. So for me, I have to wait for something that looks in line with what I've seen before. I need to see some kind of tightness or some kind of area that makes sense for price to reach beyond. So this is now becoming, like even one candle in this case made this a lot clearer. Why? Because we have our move now, we have the surfer higher, and now we have pauses right before the area that we would expect price to expand from. So we can expect that again, a stage 2 into a stage 1, a stage 2 should result in some kind of delivery that will be worth getting involved in so we can get ourselves managed, protected, and hopefully positioned for a win. So now I may take a look at the 1 minute and see what's going on. And as we take a look here, structurally we have beautiful highs into higher lows, into inside structures that are delivering now and creating a buy stoppable high in the form of an MB. So that is very, very happily an area I'll take an entry and see if it wants to tap me in. So you can see price just fails down. Instantly this becomes a cancellation, very simple. Move back to the 6 minute and keep watching it because this may now start to serve a rising 20 or 50. Now when I talk about surfing a rising 10, 20, 50, the reason we look for that is because if large money is getting involved behind something or truly wants to be behind it, and the composite operator is truly accumulating and moving that asset higher on any given time frame, what's going to happen is with the large moves, which is basically large demand drying up supply and moving higher, they will be re-supported at these points because what's happening is new money wants to continuously get in and protect the previous orders while also taking it to its granted high that it actually wants to get to. So if the price wants to get to 2,500, 2,480, whatever it is, then it's going to stop at these points. It's going to put in that sideways. It's going to build up new dumb supply while accumulating that demand and then continue moving in demand higher, which is why we use a few timeframes to see that. So right now I don't see really a clear tight range, right? So usually I'll get rid of lines when this is happening and I'll just keep an eye on it. But something may build up. So right now, as you can see, right, we're building these higher lows and now we're starting to put in a little bit of a tight range. That's perfect. This is perfection in my book. So I can step down lower and take a look at if there's some kind of setup or something clear that is worth taking. So right now, all I see is a potential buy above this high. Okay, and that's okay, right? Because what we've done is we started to validate larger demand and now we're setting up new demand in here. Now for me personally, because I like to be very, very clear with my entries, What I would rather wait for right now is either price coming up, coming down heavily and creating a high that can be easily buy stop like that, or coming up, pausing, and creating a high around here, around that same action that we can then buy stop, right? Because this is what I'm used to seeing in price. So I wait, price comes down heavily, right? It does not look like it's doing anything anyway. So we'll go back to the 6 minute and you can see it fails the setup that it was undergoing. So I'll delete everything that I was looking at because again, you don't want to force trades and you don't want to force things in terms of what price is doing, and just wait for, again, price to prove that it wants to be bought up, price to create something tight, some area by which a expansion out of it would mean that you're likely going to get a move, and wait for that entry to actually get positioned. Right, so right now you can see we're kind of surfing. So this is kind of interesting, but we're surfing above this 50, which is kind of like sideways. And we're putting in some kind of range, and this just put in a little bit of a tight candle. So it is putting in some kind of tight range. This is a little bit harder, but based on what the entry time frame can be telling us now, there is an opportunity for an entry, because at the same time, you can see we kind of surfed that 20 higher, we failed just below, and then we came right back up. So this is moving in order. What I can see happening now is either a move coming out of it, or maybe even a move, a pause again, and then the move. So again, I'm willing to take the potential loss because I understand I'm getting involved in an area where the second it truly fails, I'm no longer going to be part of it. And if it works, then you're going to be able to make a good bit of money, right? That's literally how that functions. So I'll take a look at the minute to see what's going on. And yeah, I mean, this is almost perfection. Oftentimes, even in these cases, like you can see we're literally setting up a high that can be buy stopped right now in line with all of this, okay? Now, the one thing that speaks out to me is the position of the MAs right now. Oftentimes I like to see them come a little bit closer. This is pointing to me at least, that price wants to push back down, get these to come a little bit closer, and then make that push higher, okay? So again, in this scenario, I will actually skip taking a long here and wait for that to happen. Now, I don't know if that's gonna happen or not, right? Price could go without me and that's okay. But I want to protect my capital and wait for the moves that make the most sense. And especially if I'm trading a lower time frame EVC, I should be aware that many moves are going to happen any given day. So I want to make sure that what I'm trading is completely in line with trades that I'm willing to get behind. So I'll wait for, hopefully, so again, this would be the activation and maybe it works now, but I want to wait for this thing to pull back a little bit and create that little bit of supply, perfect, for the demand to actually overtake once it comes in. And now you can see this tightness has become much clearer on that 6 minute. So I'm going to show you the 6 minute, right? You can see we're still sailing this thing higher and we started to put in this little range above. That's perfection. In this scenario here, right, it can even play around a little bit more, but I'm more than happy to buy stop the MB here, throw the stop inside or just under these MAs and look to take it higher. Let's see if we can get an entry. So it plays around, comes down. Again, the entry's still fully fine, and it may even set up a better one, right? Because it's becoming tighter on that higher time frame. So we'll keep that in mind. But right now, this high in terms of demand validation makes the most sense for what price is doing. Maybe it comes up and pauses again. Okay, so it doesn't pause again, it just taps us in. So at this point, all we do is we wait for enough strength where it makes sense to move ourselves to break even, granted that we could stay in the move in the event that it wants to actually move. So we'll give it a chance to prove some strength. So no strength comes in, and actually price just fails down. So it's a very easy -1. We can delete that and actually we'll leave it on there so you guys can see it, so you can know where it is. And we'll go back to the 6 minute to check out what's going on, right? And again, notice this, right? When I'm taking the entry, I'm aware that if I'm wrong, I'm just gonna be wrong quickly and there's not much to do, right? Because there's not gonna be an opportunity to just keep taking entry after entry. A lot of traders take entry after entry after entry after entry somehow. And as a result, they fail after fail after fail. Versus take the entry, it works or it won't. Take the entry, it works or it won't. Take the entry, it works or it won't. Take the entry, it fails, maybe it sets up again, and then it works or it won't. Don't take an entry and then force entries, because a lot of people will do that. Instead, give it a chance to now set up. If it wants to set up, it's gonna build something cleaner, it's gonna build something tighter, and then it's gonna give us a nice entry. That's all we have to do, okay? So price looks like it just comes right down. Now it's on the bottom side of price. So this is where I would basically ignore price until, again, it starts to make clearer moves away from this and then sets up a trade. So right now there's nothing to do. And then it starts making this little move here, right, within the overall range. So you can see this range here almost gets prorated. It's almost becoming clearer in itself. It's moving like together, okay? So at this moment, you're also surfing a rising 10 a little bit. So there is some reason to look at this. Again, I don't like the larger setups. I usually wait for them to become clear on the 10, so I'll wait. Okay, ignore that, guys. Not too important. Here we are. So now what you're seeing, okay, is that price is surfing this higher and putting in quite a tight range around here. So this is now lining up across a few ranges of stage ones, that are basically showing you that price is likely, again, going to make a stage 2 if it wants to go. So I would step down here and take a look at what the lower time frame is telling me, right? And structurally, once again, we started coming out of this. We came out of it beautifully. I apologize for that. Let me actually close this for now. There we go. We started to create the beautiful structural narrative here. Now, and my whole computer almost shut down. There we are. And you can see this MB right here and this MB right here. So basically the demand validations that rest kind of amongst all these points. So what I would do is I'd set up a long through this high, throw the stop under, and look to take it up and see if we can get tapped in. So price plays around and then taps you in, right? So again, same thing. The stop loss is based on the MA positions at the time of this setup. And again, as we set that up through the beautiful structure here, we now look for the hopeful strength to bring us to break even. So price plays around, strength comes in, and we get to move our trade to break even. Okay, phenomenal. Now we head to the 6 minute because that's our validation time frame. And again, we kind of follow the 3 candle rule. We have 1, 2, if the third one makes a big candle, we can partial at 50%. And nope, it doesn't do that. So instead, we just end up taking a break even on this. Nothing else really. It ended up running how much? About 3.5 RR, but that's okay. That's part of the game. We take a nice break even and we continue, right? Because now it is making clear moves. It's coming out of this larger stage 1, which is a higher time frame, the context time frame, the hourly large price action, right? Which means that now if we can again start to surf and make something tight, there should be a nice entry to take. So you can see we continue to surf higher with these rising 10 and 20. And at the same time, this kind of area here becomes, right, it kind of puts in this range. Now, this is not clear enough for me. It's very hard for me to trade this kind of stuff, so I'll give it some time. It might get tighter, and then we can look at it. Otherwise, there's not much to do. So you can see, you know, in this case, it might have worked, it might have not worked. I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for things that are in line with the clean surfers and the clean stage 1s. Otherwise, there's really not much for me to do, right? Money keeps coming in. As you can see, money keeps surfing this thing higher and puts in this little tight range here. So this is one of those moments where it actually would make sense as it's tightening up here to look at that lower. I might have just missed the entry, but that's okay, right? So at the moment, if we can get a setup, right, where price comes down maybe a little bit and then builds an MB, there's a buy stop here or here that may exist. Otherwise, I don't see anything on this and it'll run without us, and that's fine. So it does put in that little high, but it's a little bit too high for me. I would skip this. And hopefully, again, this is one of those moments where it either runs without me and that's okay, or it fails down and then sets up the actual entry for me, okay? There's no reason for me to force stuff, so okay, maybe it does do that. Let's see. And then it just fails down. So again, there's no reason for me to force stuff because if it's not clear, I'm not gonna trade it. There's not a reason for me to take risk on it, okay? So as price fails down, again, it puts itself into a context that's not worth trading. So all we can do as traders that are looking for a specific directional delivery on what's going on here, okay? All we can do as traders is wait for a clear move to come up. And we then get a move down. So we actually get a move down, a nice surfer on the downside, and just now it's surfing downside. So all I expect now is that price wants to just, you know, keep on going lower. And there's nothing for me to touch, right? Unless it starts to shape up. And it just keeps going lower. And again, it's probably gonna go lower. Yeah, so again, you can see it's surfing on the downside, moves lower. Surfing on the downside, moves lower. Surfing on the downside, moves lower. Now again, these are areas you could trade, but I wouldn't, right? Because I look for alignment between the overall structure, the trend, the delivery of the market, and then I look to get involved in it. And just like that, when a trend stalls out or fails to exist in a given moment, it does not mean that you're sitting there taking endless losses. It actually just means that you actually might even make money, right? Some of these end stalling out trends might make you money before coming down, and that's fine. But the reason that happens is because you have really good rules in regards to getting involved when the picking is good, right? It's literally like waiting for the apples to be ripe on the tree before you pick them, right? You just wait, and then sometimes when you pick one, there will be a worm in it, and you're like, damn, fuck, I lost the apple. But at the end of the day, when you look in the basket, you're gonna have a ton of red, colorful apples that you can now go and sell for a lot of money, right? Because all you're doing is you're constantly picking apples that you know are over time gonna make you money, and when they do, you make a lot of money, and when they don't, you lose very little. And then again, if you take into account just the last 3 days until the market failed and went into this shitty back and forth where you couldn't do anything, if you really pay attention to what would have happened in the event that you had traded this market over and over and over again and showed up to do the same thing every day, the reality is you ended up going, in 3 days, what? The 17 plus the 8 plus the management of this trade that we left off with at the end of last video, 1.84 plus 1.67, and now you have a -1 with the break even. So again, over the last few days, up to the last 3 days, notice that the results of every day are not the same whatsoever, because that's how trading works. But still, despite that, if you're following proper rules, the result of 3 days of doing proper work, showing up to execute a proper system of EVC across the time frames that you have personally picked out, and following the price action of what you're used to seeing, stage 1, stage 2s, surfing clearly, becoming tight, going lower, looking at the actual supply and demand interaction of the structure as well, and then entering through that and then managing your trades, you're up around 27 RR over those 3 days. And this is how you consistently show up to markets that are proving to be one-sided, and you actually trade them when they set up. And then if we look at the context now, you can see the context has gone into shit. Right? This is nothing to do now. You are now going to be waiting for a moment like this one, like this one, like this one, like this one, until it finally comes out. So as it starts coming out, there's going to be reasons to step down lower to your validation time frame and then hopefully your entry time frame, so you can follow that higher in the event that it occurs. Most important language that I want you to understand about even this video right now is that in the event that it occurs, you need to be able to execute patiently as a trader. The only way you make money in this market is by being patient about the setups. Remember to yourself that 90% of everybody that trades is trading every single day on every piece of action on the top side and the bottom side, on the long side and the short side, and as a result, they are getting random results and losing. Do not be part of that crowd and continue to get it and continue becoming and getting a lot better.